We're talking actors and directors who put on the shows.
We're talking playwrights and designers who you'll want to know.
From the very first rehearsal to the final curtain call.
We might be off Broadway, but we're talking about it all.
'Cause we're two local gals
With global pals, it's everything, everything, everything theater.
with Benita
And Ellen. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Everything Theater Podcast, the podcast where we talk about...
Everything Theater. Hi, everybody. I'm Benita Zahn.
And I'm Ellen Cribbs.
And we're at it early this morning because our fabulous guest has a show and has a plan on how she lives her life. We're talking with Kim Stauffer. She is the lead in What the Constitution Means to Me, the show written by Heidi Schreck about her life. And you not only play it, you inhabit it, Kim.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I believe in the story a lot, so it's easy in that regard. So thanks for having me. It's nice to be here with you both.
Great having you. Look, you've got a resume and it's, it goes on. Your resume goes around the block. There's almost nothing you haven't tackled. And to look at you, it's like, you sure you're not 203, given all the work you have accomplished and accomplished so well. Talk to us a little bit about playing this role in particular, because you're it. Yeah, you got some other folks on stage, but you're it.
Yeah, it really is unlike anything I've ever played before in that regard. And it's like you said, you do have to kind of hopefully inhabit it because there's no other way out. So, and it's quite a journey. You're asking the audience to go on a ride with you that is hopefully funny, but also tragic and funny again. And then, and so if you aren't able to connect, if I can't connect with the material, if the audience can't connect with me, it's it becomes a real problem. So yeah, I think one thing I will say is that I have actually been a fan of Heidi Schreck's for years. I booked a show, Circle Mirror Transformation, which she had played. I booked the role that she had played. And I was like, oh, she's kind of my type. And she's doing stuff that I like. She's writing stuff that I believe in, so I've always followed her. So as soon as this hit the circuit, I was like, I really knew I wanted to. I was hoping for the chance. Of course, you can't really control that. So I was so grateful when this opportunity came up. Like, it's all huge gratitude. It does feel like everything in my life has led me to this role at this time, which is just, it kind of feels, I don't want to be weird about it, but it feels sacred, like being able to do it here. And what's interesting too is Maggie actually was one of my earliest, working at Cap Rep was one of my earliest and one of my first jobs as an equity actor. It wasn't the first, but it was early on in my career that I auditioned for her, and she cast me in The Crucible. And I remember her saying, "Oh, might be a little bit young for it, but she took a chance, and that introduced me to this region and this community. So it feels lovely to come kind of full circle at a very different time in my career, in my life, to be able to bring this role specifically to Cap Rep and to like the Albany, to this community too.
And then the Wham's connection as well.
Yes, absolutely. Which you have done work with in the Berkshires, believe strongly. I'm very connected to that theater, believe strongly in what they do. And so to have all that coming together, working with Kristen, who I've also worked with before, it was a real gift. And I think it speaks to, like, there used to be resident theater companies, where you are in community and you're playing these roles together and different shows, but the same kind of community of actors. And we have a little bit of that here. And I think it shows in that when you've had some history together, the safety you can feel in the space to really take risks and try to, as you create things, I think you might take greater risks because there's already a trust established there. And I hope that shows in the production.
And, with Kristen Van Ginhoven leaving Wham's as the creative artistic director and all the titles there, to have her part of it, this as, we'll call it a swan song, really, because, I talked with her after the opening night at the show. She doesn't really know what tomorrow is going to bring and what road will open up for her. So to have the two of you able to do this at Capital Rep, I'm sure is incredibly special for both of you.
Yes, it really is. And, Kristen creates such a safe space in the rehearsal room and really wanted to let us play and not just the actors, but the whole team. She really works to cultivate a space where everyone has that voice. And there were even times when she would kind of like, there's one thing she got kind of stumped on, and she kind of turned to the room and she's like, if anyone has any ideas, let me know. And our ASM, Kathleen Keene, like spoke up and was like, what? And we're like, oh, we try it. So she fosters a very collaborative environment, which I think is also, I mean, talk about, it's a swan song. It's also the beginning of a new chapter for her. And she's really cultivating spaces in the theater that are working in different ways, that are taking away the hierarchies, that are taking away some of the power dynamics that can be at play in the rehearsal room. And she's really kind of trying to level that playing field, making it a space where everyone feels safe. And that, I think, is the new wave of theater, and so that's really lovely in that way, that this is, I think of it, this is the beginning of the next chapter for her too, in some ways.
There's so much to talk about the show, but Ellen, you've got a connection sort of with one of the performers.
Yeah, a UAlbany student, isn't it, that I worked with in the Wolves at UAlbany last year. So that's very exciting. And I'm currently an adjunct instructor at UAlbany this semester, and so that's all the buzz in the department is go see Izzy. You got to go check her out at Capital Rep, and what a great opportunity for a UAlbany student.
It's incredible. And Izzy was one of my students like 2 years ago when I was at UAlbany. And so it's been lovely to actually perform alongside of her and learn from her. And she's phenomenal. And both of our debaters are named Izzy. So it's easy for me. I don't have to memorize 2 different names. And they're just, when they enter, they're just effervescent, and the vulnerability and they just are who they are when they come on stage. And it's really kind of lights things up. So yeah, Izzy is phenomenal.
For those who don't know, Heidi Schreck toured the country talking about the Constitution and what it means to her, and she put herself through college that way. So it's not only personal retelling that story, but in the show, she also discloses experiences, some quite painful, that she had in her life. Kim, the night I was there, a couple of people left because either they, one, don't agree with the politics, or 2, it was too close to home. I don't know. I didn't stop them at the door and go, excuse me, but why are you leaving and not, this is a fabulous performance. I'm wondering how, 1, do you notice that? And 2, how often does that happen?
I have not noticed. I mean, occasionally people leave. It's not unusual to see people, sometimes they have to go to the bathroom, know why they're leaving. So I'm usually not focused too much on I can't let myself focus on, why is that happening, at this moment, right? So I can't speak to whether or not that's happening, and if it's because they're going to the bathroom, they're about to have a coughing fit, or if it's because they're concerned about the politics. I will say, this show, what makes it unique is there's a very permeable wall between the audience and myself. So I do notice, I would say, even not just when people leave, but if a phone goes off, or if someone is sitting there looking at me like with a little bit of angry look on their face, or if they are there with tears coming down their face, or they reach out and they grab their partner's hand, and I see them squeeze their partner's hand, and I know that it is hitting things. It is touching nerves, and in all kinds of levels, in all kinds of ways. And I do notice that, and I think that that's part of the beauty of it. And I think that it can catch people off guard when they come in, because we're not used to that. I don't think, especially not like not me being so direct, connecting people directly, right? Usually there's that 4th wall. So I think it can be disarming. And sometimes I think it can be healing to feel seen. Other times you're not ready for it. And that's totally valid. And so I think what this show has taught me is I have a lot of compassion for the audiences. And I can see when people agree or disagree. And the point is, they've still chosen to be there, or they choose to need to step out if they need to prepare themselves. And that's valid too. They didn't know exactly what they were going to encounter when they came in. So I think for me, there's been I feel like this blanket of compassion that I really sometimes just envision the whole audience before I go on. I just imagine like wrapping them all in a big hug, you know what I mean? So they can have whatever experience they need to have at And so I trust them. If they need to leave, if they need to grab their partner's hand, if they pull out that tissue and they need to cry through something, right there, house right, and I can see it. I mean, it happened just last night. Somebody just was going through it, and they stayed there with their partner. And as I walked off stage at the end, they just mouthed the word thank you to me. So, it's to me, it's sacred work. And I want to really trust and respect the audience to do whatever they need to do that evening, that afternoon, to receive it in whatever way they can.
Which is interesting because Benita and I have talked a lot on the podcast about audiences in general and how there's kind of been a recent shift in audiences, we feel. Whether it's a post-COVID thing or political climate thing or what, but, a lot of news throughout the nation of audiences not being the most respectful, and talking back and things like that. So with this show where they are kind of integral to the show, I mean, they're there with you. Have you found any of this kind of shift that we're talking about, or because they're more involved, do you feel the breaking, the fourth wall not being so strong helps them connect more to the material?
Oh, I think it does help them connect more because they have no choice. You know what I mean? It's kind of right there. And it does definitely put a personal face and a name on what might have been previously intellectual debates. And I think that's what some people come thinking, oh, it's going to be, intellectual about the Constitution. And it is, and it's personal. And so I think you can hit both of those levels depending on what kind of very different audience members we might have. I think, Ellen, that people are ultimately wanting community. I totally agree. I think that people who do come back to the theater, they may not know how to get it, but like suddenly being in this theater space with people, and they're having a reaction. As an audience member, I'm watching it happen. They might be like, yeah, to something, and the person right next to them is like, ooh. And I'm watching audience members navigate sitting right beside somebody who might be having a very different reaction to them, to a political issue, especially in the latter part of the play, which I won't give away what that happens towards the end of the play. But that's where we actually invite more audience participation, like verbally. And so I watch it happen, and I see some people come, are just ready to just verbalize things, and other people are like, oh wait, how do I do this? And like, because then it becomes real when they have to make audible sounds that express their viewpoints, and they're realizing they're doing that beside somebody else who might think differently than them. It's like this, oh, this is interesting, and it's kind of uncomfortable, and what is this, but I think ultimately it's engaging because we are not used to that. We're coming out of isolation. We're coming out of it, we're in a very divisive time in our country's, history. So I think it really does invite that kind of new kind of practice, a new attempt to be together in so many ways that I think is beautiful and challenging and hopefully engaging. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's great.
And that has to also, for you, keep it fresh. Because in many ways there's you, as you pointed out, the debater, and there's one other person on the stage, but you get a fourth character, and that's the house, and it can be 20 or 250. And they come, everybody, it all smells different each night. They don't know their lines.
Right.
And so you've got this other performer who's first time on the stage.
Yes. And when we went through a rehearsal, we were so aware that we were having a lot of play in the rehearsal room, but we kept saying like, oh, we need the audience. We aren't going to know what's funny, what's going to land, what's going to change. And it really made a big difference. I mean, Cap Rep, they have a wonderful pool of volunteers. So they all came one night, before previews to kind of give us a little bit of practice with an audience. And it really did ignite it in a whole different way. It's like, usually the first thing we discuss when we like walk off stage is like, well, that audience was this or that, or like every audience has a different personality, and it absolutely does change us. There are different, Heidi in the script, she says, please change things to keep up with current events. Like if there's been some current event that's happened, you can improv about that. Update the statistics, keep things current. So if there are things that happen in the space, you know, like I was one time I was I'm like, I don't do any spoilers, but I was talking about a moment in history, and the guy in the front row said, "Oh yeah, that was the Chinese Exclusion Act." Like and I said, "Yes, sir, that's right. This is, you know what I mean?" Like there's a little always dialogues like that going back and forth. And if an audience is laughing at everything, there might be a little more improvs that we throw into things too. So it definitely changes it in
Yeah,
a
you got to
very
go.
fun way.
Yeah, I was gonna say you got to go out every night wearing your point shoes, the toe
Yes,
shoes. It's
absolutely. Absolutely. And you have to listen, like you have to know your lines. But everything I do, my radar is always on, like, what's happening? What am I noticing, this little movement over here in the audience? Am I hearing this? Am I, that one person who has that funny laugh that keeps coming out? I'm gonna throw something to them. Or, where are the young people? Where are the different, I'm always scanning and always aware and letting that in to my choices.
Now, in the rehearsal room, how does that translate? How did you prepare for that level of awareness?
Yeah, we couldn't. I mean, we would try to use the team, the stage manager, ASM, it's an amazing supportive team, and Kristen, but there was an element, there's really, I mean, there's ways we couldn't really practice it until we had it. So I think for us, it was like trying as many different things as we could, being as prepared as we could. So when the audience arrived, we could feel confident letting go of that preparation, releasing into the preparation to receive whatever the audience was giving us. Yeah. And it definitely has deepened over the run, for sure. Our comfort level in that and our ability to flex with it.
you've got a week left to your run.
Yeah.
What are you hoping for? Is there something that you haven't had the opportunity to explore? What's left basically for you to mine that
Oh,
you might not have already done?
oh, wow. That's a good question. I know that there's one major thing that comes to mind right away, Benita. I would say I think it is continuing to um, definitely keep playing with these moments, right, with the audience. And I would also say, I think that one thing that I'm finding interesting is the moments of vulnerability for Heidi, for the character in this show. Um, when there are audiences or audience members who I can tell are a little bit like, I don't know what I think about this, right? Or I might not agree with this. It's an interesting challenge for me as an actor to still feel um, safe to go there with a vulnerability. And so I think that's something that I'm continuing. And I've been aware of that. It's not like a new discovery, but I was like, oh, that's interesting. So that's something I look forward to continuing to mine, is holding to the truth of those moments and still dipping into them or diving into them, because every audience needs that, no matter if we're a little bit reticent or unsure. So I think that's one thing that I want to, it's not like I haven't been doing that. I have been doing that. I want to continue to challenge myself to keep doing that with an open heart. So I think that's one thing. And I mean, this is not, I can't control this, but I think it's a really special play. And I really hope that audiences come out, and women, the men who love them, the people who want change in our world in whatever form, will see this as an act of activism, to come and see this play, to support live theater for one, but also just to open their minds to being exposed to new ways of thinking and being in a room with people who have that same commitment, even if you have different political views. I just really hope, I think it's a special piece in that way, and it's important, very important. So my hope is, that will happen. And, we've had great audiences. I hope they would continue to come and fill the space.
Can you talk a little bit to just you personally as an actor, working on more traditional theater pieces of, multiple characters, you build a relationship with your fellow actor of, these characters' relations going off each other, and kind of not having that. And it's kind of you on that stage, and kind of your process of tackling this very different structured play.
Yeah. Well, one, I would say, Jay, who plays the Legionnaire, Jay Sefton, amazing actor, and truly is like a male ally. And I feel like even though he has very few lines throughout, I feel his presence, and we are very finely like tuned in to all the little reactions, the little looks. So I do feel that dialogue is going on, and I think everything that you're talking about, Ellen, that I normally would create with another actor, I've had to create with the audience, and which is this changing character, as Benita said earlier. So that's the fun of it, because it truly is like improv, like every night. And I think there's that, which meant that from an actor standpoint, to your question, Ellen, I really have needed to craft a very solid kind of infrastructure, like emotional infrastructure, just textual structure, which Heidi builds into this, which is beautiful and easy. It makes the journey easy, the roller coaster that I have to go on. But I really have to trust the words, lean into that, and then really link one thing to the next. It's very smart writing. She doesn't always explain why she's moving from one thing to the next, but if you kind of pay attention, she really is building. And so I lean into that structure that the playwright has given me as well, and that helps me to get there. Hopefully with the audience right along with me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard this before, Ellen, myself, as performers, people say, how do you remember all those words? And I don't know about you, my response, the first response is, it's magic and I don't want to tinker with it. But learning a show like this, is it different? Different set of muscles, different way of learning to get this, set so that you can go ahead and then be that confident. To the night I was there, somebody's phone was ringing, and you very nicely said, just answer it.
I just said, it's okay. Thank you. Yes. I think, yeah, right. Because in other plays, you have somebody else's line to come in to kind of prompt the next line. I didn't have that. So I think in a show like this, it relies much more on what is my character's internal thought, right? When I say this line, when Heidi says this line, what does that evoke for her? And then how does that prompt her next thought? So I think that's the infrastructure that I was having to build as I was memorizing. And I did find it quite easy because I think the writing is brilliant that way. So that was helpful. But I think it took me about 4 to 6 weeks. I was kind of doing like 7 pages a week, something like that. I just broke it down. That's how I work best. There's also like apps, believe it or not. It's a line learner app where you can like record different voices and modulate up and down the tone. And, so I have that. I still have it. I'll play it in my car when I'm like driving somewhere, like review the lines even now, but I think it was following her internal thought process that helped me. Oh, and then when I say this, it makes me think of this, and that leads me to the next thing. Yeah, but it did take time for sure. No shortcuts there.
The last time I worked at Capital Rep was Shakespeare. So, right, like they were so word perfect of like, it's not it's a, were you held to that same thing, or because of the nature of the, little freedom of this, were you allowed to not have to be so word perfect?
Yeah, I think that because there is so much improv in it, with the phones going off or different things. Yeah, I think I would say probably is a little bit looser than Shakespeare in verse, when you got to hold to that iambic pentameter too, so yes, a little bit probably loosier goosier word on it, but also wanting to, of course, stay true to the script, so.
This is what, your third, fourth time at Capital Rep now? I should probably
fourth.
So after this finishes, and this has been, as you're saying, it's been huge, but it's also been very fulfilling. So you give and you get. Maybe it's a net wash, but what's on the horizon for you after this, Kim?
Well, I will take some time. This is always a hard question. I do have another project coming up January, February, but I haven't signed the contract yet, so I'm not going to divulge that. But I have that to look forward to. So
is it East Coast so we can see you, or is it West Coast?
It is East Coast. Yes. Yes. Yeah, Northeast. So I will have that to look forward to. And I always feel like that's always a dream, right? Have something else that you know is coming up before something ends. But I also I also work for the Alan Alda Center for Communicating Science. So I have other, where I do improv with scientists and things like that to help them become more compassionate, effective communicators with scientists and medical professionals. So I also have other work that I love too, in addition to acting. So I'll be jumping back more into that as well. That's what I do in my in-between time. So I feel really fortunate that, I've got a lot of fulfillment on a lot of fronts. Feel
You
very
have
great.
an incredibly impressive resume and the variety of the work that you've done. But people may not know you also studied and trained as a social worker.
Yes. Yes. When I was this is what I told my students, when I was in undergrad, I double majored in social work and theater, and I graduated and I still was not, I just didn't think, I was scared. I was scared about pursuing theater, but I told myself I was going to give myself 1 year. And in that year, I was going to do everything social work and everything theater. And after a year, and I literally set a date, you know, at this date next year, I'm going to sit myself down, have a meeting with myself and see what I learned. And after that year, I was like, no, I have to do theater. But I would say that social work background, that social worker in me, is also why I find shows like this one satisfying and so fulfilling, because it is connecting with people in a very direct way. And I think that's what I love about theater in general, and roles like this in particular. So,
And it's interesting, the fellow who you play opposite
yes.
took a lot of time off to learn to study and become certified. He's a therapist.
Yes. Yes. Jay is a therapist. Yes. And that's also why he's a great listener and a great ally and all those things. But I do think that there is, something about, I don't know if you all feel this, but there are a lot of theater people, I think, it's who are into this kind of thing. It's like the study of human behavior. That's what we do. It's what our characters are. Why do people do the things we do? And we can't judge our characters. We can't play a role and be like, why'd they do that? We have to figure out and back up why they did that. And it helps us understand humans more and gives us more compassion for why people do what we do. It ignites curiosity about people instead of cancel culture. It's like the opposite of that. And so I think there are a lot of people like us, perhaps, that in the theater who find humans pretty interesting. Yeah.
I always found there's a lot of folks who in theater who started in biology. And I think it's the same inquisitiveness about the
Yeah.
human being.
Yes.
But the
love
reason I
that.
brought it up is that for the two of you to have that in your pocket to bring
Mhm.
to this particular show with its specific demands probably heightens it for you and for us as an audience, both of you being so understanding and
Mhm.
attuned. So we
Mhm.
see a very different type of performance. I mean, you could go see this somewhere else with wonderful performers, but what you two bring is unique.
Oh, I love that. I hope. Yeah. And I feel it with Jay. We instantly connected on that because of this, this joint like passion for and curiosity for humans. But I think and I hope that there is a level of authenticity that we bring to that relationship with each other and the audience because of that common ground. Yeah.
Now, in the last few minutes, Kim, we have a section called the close up, which is just some rapid fire questions all about you. So, Kim, are you
Uh-oh.
ready for your close up?
Okay. Yes, sure.
So, what was the moment in your life? Was it that year that you spent trying to figure out social work or theater, or was there one particular moment where you're like, I have to do theater? Like that's what it is.
Yes, I think it was probably that moment. That was the pivotal time where I was like, okay, I have to do this now, because I tried some other things and I had given it its time and its worth to investigate that, and I would say that was the moment, because everything after there, I went to grad school, I went to DC and then New York, so I think that was the beginning of all of it. Yeah.
And is there a certain play that has had a big impact on your life, either something that you've worked on or something that you saw or read that's always stayed with you?
this one. I mean, you know, this has been a game changer for me because it's set a bar as well. Like to me, it fulfills me as an activist. It fulfills me as a human. It challenges me immensely as an artist. So I feel like moving forward, it's like, this is what I believe theater can be. And I've always loved theater, always believed in it. But now I feel like we're in a new age. Let our plays sing even higher, beyond, further than what they have before and what they're asking of us and our audiences. And so I think this is a game changer for me in that way, moving forward.
Are there other shows or roles specifically that you want to do that either are just, bucket list roles you wanted to work on, or are in the same vein of what the Constitution means to me that you're like, I want to be involved with that show?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say what I'm passionate about as far as roles are some of the plays that are not yet written. I think we are in an age now where underrepresented voices are finally being given more and more time on our stages. And so I feel like I want to be a part of those plays, even if it's I'm a part of telling somebody else's story. Like this play right here is very centered on Heidi, right? It centers white feminism, and it's and that's has its place, right? And I also would love to be doesn't have to be the biggest role, or doesn't have to be the I'm just curious about being part of the new stories that are coming out right now. So I guess in some ways I can't say a specific role because I think they are in process right now and hopefully hitting our stages very soon.
Oh, I love that. And
Exciting.
any advice for sometimes we just say for actors in general, but I think any advice for someone tackling this particular role, another actress who's jumping into this somewhere in the nation?
Yeah, wow. Find ways to ground yourself and find things that ignite your passion every day, because this show is a marathon that requires intense passion for what you're saying every night. And you have to sustain it for a whole 2 hours, whole hour and 45 minutes, whatever it is. And you have to be like the Energizer Bunny, which means that your own personal well of care, passion, and like, oh, I gotta say this. It has to be so strong. And so to tune into what you're dealing with, what you're feeling politically, what you really deeply care about, and letting that be the motor. I think you have to be tapping into that every day to sustain the show.
The show runs, we wrap up on the 7th.
Yes.
And I just want to point out that if anyone's interested, on the 4th, in advance of the show, Maggie has booked on a few occasions, and this is one of them, Q&As in advance, and Judge David Weinstein will be the guest, and I'm the Grand Inquisitor. So if you're looking for a specific night, come down a little early, take part in that conversation. In a sense, it's like, when you jump rope and you do a little of this before you jump right in, it may provide that opportunity for you. But even if you don't, this is a not to be missed, really, Kim. It's the work's great, and so glad we've had this opportunity to spend some time talk with you. Book a ticket, book a ticket, book a ticket.
And I did just look, it's open till the 8th, October, Sunday the 8th.
Sunday, right.
Yes. And yes, it's true. Benita, we notice a difference with the audiences who have people who attend some of these pre-show activities that Cap Rep has been having. They come in with just a little more background knowledge or curiosity. So definitely the 4th, like, show up. That's a great way to start the show. Yeah.
Excellent. And thank you so much, Kim. For our listeners, catch the show again at Cap Rep, What the Constitution Means to Me. I'm Ellen Cribbs.
And I'm Benita Zani. Yes, it goes till the 8th.
Thanks so much for having me. I so appreciate it. It's been a joy.
It was a pleasure. Be well. Take care, everybody. See you next time.
Thank you so much for listening to the Everything Theater podcast. Special thanks goes out to Alice Grinling for our photography and Justin Friello for composing our amazing theme song. Please remember to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you want to share your thoughts or what's going on in your theater community, you can reach out to us on social media or through our email at everythingtheaterpodcast@gmail.com. Till next time. It's everything, everything, everything.